Hey everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing The Northman. This film was directed by Robert Eggers. This is his third feature-length film, and I loved his first two films, so naturally I was very intrigued by this. His first two films being The Witch and The Lighthouse. I've seen The Witch many times. I would love to see The Lighthouse again, but I think are just brilliant period pieces that are so rich in detail, and especially with The Witch, I think, has a lot of postmodern influence to it. And there's something very unique about his films that could be overwrought, and yet it doesn't feel that way. When I look at The Witch, there's something liberating about it, like in terms of kind of shedding a certain skin, and it looks at that in a way that's quite different from what you're used to. Rather than condemning the protagonist, it liberates the protagonist in a way that I found to be unexpected and really kind of beautiful. And then there's The Lighthouse, which is more kind of like old school 1920s German expressionism, lots of surrealism and psychological paranoia used, like in The Witch, but in a very different way, where the narrative perspective and the order in which things are told, all of that really matters and starts to shift around. You call a lot of it into question. And despite its very raunchy nautical spirit, I do see it as a kind of a bizarre comedy of sorts. And now we have The Northman, which is by far his most ambitious film in terms of just scale, spectacle, all that. And when I saw the trailer initially, I was very, very intrigued by it because it certainly had elements of Eggers that I recognized, but it was also going in a different direction tonally than what I expect from him. I could tell it was going to be a departure just in the sense of, I think he's really good at creating a sense of authenticity and really building a world around his characters that is believable, where you feel very rooted in it with them. So it's like looking at a certain period very much as if you're part of it, and not in an objective way, which we're very used to, I think, with filmmakers. I don't know, I just got a sense that there was like a camp factor going on here. And having those elements of maybe like pagan folk horror movies tinged with kind of kitsch psychedelia from the 1970s. I feel like the only thing missing from this trailer was like Donald Sutherland holding a Bible and just praying in some sort of, psychosis state. But knowing that it's Eggers behind the camera, I'm like, yeah, let's go. I'm very ready for this. And yeah, I am intrigued by the ambition of it. I love ambitious films because we don't see a lot of them anymore. And I felt this was really a chance for Eggers to kind of take the next step and show us really what he's made of, and really show us kind of a bold concept here that can be maybe more accessible for the people. But alas, I did not care for this film, and I feel like we found some major weaknesses in him as a filmmaker and as a storyteller here. Look, the film is big, it's grand, you can tell a lot of work went into it. There are a lot of hours, a lot of people, and a lot of research, and I don't want to discount that because, it's like, I can tell hard work went into it, and I do commend that to a degree for sure. I commend artists who work on, little bits of films, different production departments. It's very important to me. But, at the same time, it all has to come together for the piece to really, sing. And for me, it's just not working. I felt as I was watching it, it's like, like I want to like it. I'm trying to like it. I'm straining to like it. And I don't know. I just couldn't, because it just felt like there's so much bark going on, literally, and not enough bite. I think this is a film that's more interested in its details rather than, the actual effect it has on an audience. And I also think it's a film that's more interested in making a statement on ambition in film rather than being actually invested in the story and the concept. One of the big problems is the filmmaking, and that's very strange as somebody that I look at to be such a wonderful artist there. This is a film about like the Viking mentality. It's like Iceland, and you've got all of these warriors, these people, these primal beasts. This is a time of primality and survival in the most blatant sense. And it's like, you really should stress that, I think, really go for it. And I don't know, this weirdly, ironically, it felt very soft. You have a lot of guys with a lot of mud on their faces, and they're ripped and all that, but it's like, like ultimately it just feels very Hollywood. It feels very much like a movie set. And, it's like when you have somebody with a sword and they thrust it into their enemy, I don't feel the viscera of that at all. It's like, where's the grit? I don't feel the terror of these villages being burned down or destroyed in the way that I think it really, really needs to. Everything is just very choreographed. And again, when I watched the trailer, I had this idea of, pageantry would be a big emphasis here. And I think, that could evoke something kind of funny. There's like a humor to that. Naturally, there's camp. It's theatrical, so that can bring out like a whole nother aspect of things. But all of that really wasn't there. Or if it is, it's so flat on the page that it's barely noticeable. It's a giant parade of visuals that are just kind of going through the motions of things. Some of it evokes really, you know, beautiful films from the past. I think about like Bergman's Rite of Spring. I thought about that a lot throughout the film. I even thought about, there's a scene towards the beginning that reminded me a lot of Ellen Klimov's Come and See. But this is a Disney film by comparison, and it's like, I just don't understand the impulse there to water it down so much. With Come and See, it's not about the violence in that film, or even just in what I'm talking about, the scene that I mentioned, but it's the mood that it sets you in. Like it's just constant nightmarish terror that is so unrelenting. It is so in the mind of your main character. And that's what helps orient the audience member in the emotion of everything. It's like, I really want to feel that physicality. And if I can't feel the physicality, well, maybe I can have some emotion. Maybe I can feel something for the characters. But unfortunately, I don't. There's a very stilted quality to the writing, to the characters, to their interactions, especially to their motivations. And I don't know, it feels more like we're highlighting a lot of mysticism and a lot of heroism in a very basic sense, and more highlighting maybe the exotic quality of the dialogue rather than plunging us into the feeling of it, as I said, orienting us in the world. And in The Witch, those characters feel like real characters who really do come from the colonial era. And really the dialogue is just simply a part of that. It's just, you know, another detail. And you don't need to know necessarily where the language comes from. You don't even necessarily need to know what they're saying all the time. You just kind of get stuck in the rhythm of it. And yes, with The Northman, it is Hamlet, but really stripped down to its most primal, basic ideas. And it really guts it of everything that makes it interesting, in my view. I mean, like when I look at Hamlet as a story, what's interesting about that is the existential dread of the main character. It's the psychological struggles of that character. And there's a lot of light and shade. There's like a lot of different tones going on in Hamlet. And I feel like that taps into aspects of revenge in a way that I find to be really captivating. You know, with this, it's more just kind of basic revenge, and that's fine. Basic revenge stories can be fantastic, but it's also very stripped of the things that make even very simple tales of revenge interesting. You know, you've got a lot of the kind of the bullet points you would expect. You have a lot of mystical elements, you have prophecies and the like, but a lot of it feels kind of uninspired, or they feel like literal extensions of the themes. The main visual symbol here is the tree that you see throughout the film, and I think that could have worked. It just, the way it's done here felt very uninspired to me. I kind of talked about this a little bit when I reviewed a movie called The Worst Person in the World, where I talked about how you've really got to be careful with your visual metaphors and sequences that are meant to kind of take on a lot of the subtext of a story. And I think you really have to ask yourself, you know, whether it's an image or like a sequence, a dream sequence or whatever, you should ask yourself, you know, some basic questions. Is this building off something in the story? Is it carrying any momentum forward, or is it deflating the momentum to express an idea that's already been expressed in other ways? And so this is just kind of making it redundant, but just with kind of artistic flourishes. And I don't think necessarily the tree here in The Northman is redundant per se. I just think it's a little bit uninspired, and I think maybe the execution and the creativity of it could have been, I don't know, more pronounced, though. There's a lot of redundancy in this movie, and it really does deflate the momentum of the tone of it. There's a lot of fight sequences, as an example, and I don't know, they all just ran together for me. They're all shot in the same way, and there's just a real sense of monotony to it, and a fear to really, I think, explore certain aspects of this world, especially the violence of it. And unfortunately, the CGI too here really sucks, and it's like, I wanted it to kind of have a cheesiness to it, maybe like, again, like a 1970s kind of psychedelic feel. I could have seen that being kind of interesting. But it leaves me very cold the way it is. And, you know, again, in a movie, in a world like this, that makes no sense at all. It's completely counterintuitive. I should be feeling like the sting. I should feel every guttural grimace. I want berserk level, like veins popping out and eyes bulging out, all of that. And why do I want that? Because it's clear that that's really what they want. It's clear that they want to go for that guttural feeling, like I'm mentioning, but they're just not doing it with real heft or conviction. And like I said, I enjoy a very basic, fun revenge tale. Some of the best movies of all time are just basic revenge stories. But I think when you're making a good one, I think it demands more of the main character in terms of self-actualization, because this one just feels so shallow. It's very like, fulfill your destiny and insert Freudian implication here and insert romantic interest here, insert haunting prophecy here, with no connection to the heart or the flesh. I don't know, I guess one of the more interesting aspects of the film is, I guess, the Nicole Kidman character, because there's a lot of Freudian stuff going on there. I like where her character goes because it's a bit unexpected, and, you know, the main character has to completely reframe his motivations. Because one thing you absolutely need in a good revenge story, I think, is for your character to face his own identity and to face his past, for sure. And with the Nicole Kidman character, things get a little bit juicy there, shall we say. But ultimately, it doesn't go anywhere interesting, and then it just kind of ends in a very shallow, expected sort of way in terms of the execution of it. Of course, the big climax of the film that it's been building to at this point, I really could care less, and it comes down to a one-on-one battle of brute strength that is literally at the gates of hell. And it is just so monotonous. It's just as monotonous as any of the battles before it, and I kind of was zoning out, I have to admit. I guess I just really walked into this with real expectations because the first two works are so promising, and because I just love the psychology of his previous films. I found them to be refreshing in this day and age, and again, the period detail, the use of language, the writing, and just filling everything with like very titillating ideas and characters. But here, I don't know, all of that was just drained from it. It's like, it's somehow very thin, as well as just like bombarding you with a lot of noise. And that's just a strange pendulum. It's like we're going from one extreme to the other. We really need a balance here. And again, I commend the artists who work on it. You know, like there are some things that I thought were good. Absolutely, there's some lovely shots and there's some good performances, but it's just not coming together. And I just really don't see anything here that I can sink my teeth into. And so ultimately, it's a bit of a slog. If you really like big movies like this, I'd say maybe, give it a shot. But I just don't see people really being invested in this other than just being, I guess, impressed by the spectacle of it. But I am really excited to see how people respond to it, and let me know in the comments. But that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist and I do commission portraits. I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I want to give a shout out to my patrons who have been wonderful. Thank you guys so much for your support. As always, if you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.